you're the first person to explore something and to, create that awareness among public. So first time, when man stepped onto the moon, it was such a grandeur event that, we didn't even know that, people could go to the moon until then. And we didn't know that there were craters on the moon. There were boulders on the moon. And when ISRO had sent Chandrayaan-1, only then we got to know that there is even water on the moon. So such things, what happens is it builds your curiosity. If there is water on the moon, that means there should have been mankind. So are these people called aliens? So immediately children's curiosity, it goes around aliens and everything. So I think space is such a beautiful subject that, it actually kindles the curiosity of children, because it's all imagination. The stars, the galaxy, the universe, the black hole, everything is imagination. So until and unless you step onto it, you really don't know. Until we really stepped onto the moon with all our rovers and everything, we didn't even know that, we generally called it a red planet. But, we really didn't know why it was called a red planet until and unless the rovers actually went there, right? So that's how it really kindles the curiosity of a child, and children are very bold in expression. And, they would love to really express themselves very beautifully in unknown concepts. So you have to definitely encourage them and, motivate them to speak about all these things. And, children these days are with the mobiles, they click pictures, so space photography, they speak about space photography. And when there is a conjunction happening between Mars and Saturn and all that, they have little telescopes and all that, watching all these things. So, it really builds their curiosity to learn more and more about space, because Earth, there is almost everything written in books and Google and everything. So they can easily understand. But this is a new concept altogether. And now this is the space era. So, there is so much happening in space. So every child is excited to speak about space. Dedicate some time first. There are so many things that are available now that children can, when SpaceX was launching, you could see the entire mission until the astronauts, the private astronauts, the commercial astronauts stepped onto the ISS and they were getting back. All these things were captured live. So if a parent can actually sit with the child and explain the whole process, I think they will get very excited. So from the next day, they will start jumping, saying, I want to be an astronaut. Because initially, in those days when NASA or Russia had sent in the astronauts, these high-tech cameras and all were not available. And these live streamings were not available. So we could not really see man going into space and everything, It was only when they reached space, they sent a few pictures and videos and all that. So the uplink and downlink was a little critical. These days, it's become so easy. Technology is developed so much that right from the takeoff, before the takeoff itself, you're able to see them and, talk to them, interact with them and all that. So if parents can really sit with the children and show them these launches, I think it'll be an exciting thing. So what happens is astronaut is covered, but what happens in the mission? So when the ground station is interacting with the astronauts and all that, you get to see so many people in the mission control. So that is a very exciting part, to be in the mission control and to be the lead command there and all that. And so, if you explain about the mission control and the purpose of a mission control and everything, children will get so enthused, and some of them may want to be scientists sitting there and controlling everything from ground. And then you get to meet so many engineers these days. There are a lot of blogs and all by space engineers. So if you can read those blogs and explain it to the children, that will create more space engineers, rockets, building satellites. So all these things, it is available now in Google. So if you can just Google and share all these knowledge with your children, explaining them the actual thing, maybe dramatically a little, so they get excited. And there are a lot of visuals available. So, there is no dearth for visuals, and you can show them. So that will really enthuse them. So I think that's how you can start. You know what? Science is curiosity. Curiosity is developing technology, and technology helps mankind. And it is not only one science that is going to help us live on Earth, right? There are so many kinds of sciences that are very, very important. We don't know what kind of food to be, what food is palatable, what is the nourishment that we get out of plants and seeds and everything. So what happens is we have to be good with biology. Now, chemistry, what are the fuels that can be used for mobility and, transportation and, space travel, air travel, anything. We need to know the composites, and we need to know the compositions of chemicals, right? So chemical engineering or chemical sciences is very, very important. Space sciences, of course, we definitely need to explore, and for which we definitely need to give that awareness to the child. So space awareness is important. So this way, every science is very, very important. Robotics and electronics, because the child doesn't know what would be his or her interest when they grow up. So if you can expose the child as a child, they are very, very enthusiastic, and they love to accept new things, new concepts, and they love to work hands-on. So if you're able to give them hands-on activities, well, I'd like to quote here about, a park in Malaysia. I was so happy that, the Malaysian government is doing something like this. They kind of have a 1-day trip to this place. A child can be a doctor, a child can be a teacher, a child can be a policeman, collector, and understand what goes behind all this. In fact, this experiment, even before seeing that in Malaysia, I actually did that with my child, because I was actually thinking, she was talking about becoming a physicist. Then she spoke about becoming a climatologist. And then she said I was going to pursue law. Finally, she settled down to be a law grad. So I was thinking, when, as they grow up, they have so many thoughts, and they feel they are good at everything. So every stage of life, when they cross, they need to be exposed to various kinds of sciences, because everything is science around us, right? Everything, right from brushing our teeth to combing our hair, everything, there is a science involved in it. So if you're able to impart that kind of an education to child as a child, then when they grow up, they will be a fantastic, they can decide about what their future is, rather than you telling them what you want them to do. And science, especially because, technologies, and, in India, we kind of import a lot of things. We were an importer for quite some time. Whereas in 130 crore population, why couldn't we build all these things here? Just because we didn't have much of an infrastructure, just because we didn't have that much of a confidence on our own people. So even the conveyor belts in the airports, we kind of imported from Indonesia. Why do we do that? So if we are able to engage children in various kinds of science and technology right from the ages of 5 and 6, if you give them that exposure, I think as we grow up, I think the country needs more scientists. So that's the reason, the underlying statement is the country needs more scientists because we need to bring down the imports and, improve exports. Plus this Atmanirbhar Bharat now by Honorable Prime Minister, I think is a great initiative. We have to start building more, for our satellites and everything. We actually struggle so much to get some components. We have to source it from different country, which takes time, which takes extra money, shipment, the process of clearance of customs and everything is a chaos. It adds up stress. So if we are able to create more scientists for the country, then I think our country will be a super rocking country. NASA's got a beautiful, exclusive for the students, Kidz. I think that's the best website because that's how we grew seeing all that. And but now there are a lot of YouTube channels, so apart from the books and everything, apart from encyclopedias and, Ross Wilbur, I think he's written a beautiful book about, a story of a kid who's coming from space. And for that matter of fact, in fact, I have penned a book, First Kids on the Moon, a short story, more picturesque and everything, just for children. So that book is also a wonderful one. And you've got YouTube channels of Scott Manley, Everyday Astronaut, and Mark Robber. These guys are very good, and their YouTube channels are extremely informative. So if the children can, parents can sit with the children and go through these YouTube channels, and also some documentaries of previous launches. There are a lot of documentaries, and even this latest SpaceX launch of these 4 commercial astronauts, beautiful documentary is made. If children can see that, it's very inspirational. So I think these are the resources that I would recommend, for children to see along with the parents. This becoming an astronaut is, I don't know what I have to tell you here. It's a long process. Okay. So you have to first choose physics. Initially what happened in those days, a fighter pilot first, they were choosing fighter pilots. In fact, for the Gaganyaan mission, also Indian mission, they have chosen 4 fighter pilots first to get into space. So if you have to be a fighter pilot, at least you have to do, a basic graduation with science, physics, or chemistry, as major, or you have to do a BTech with, electronics, telecommunication, engineering. Then you have to, take the pilot license. Okay. And in that you have to be a fighter pilot. So this was the criteria initially. Now what's happening is, apart from fighter pilots, they're also, choosing researchers, because you need to go and research in the ISS and everything. So for which, again, you need to have a science major. So you need not do aerospace engineering, mandatorily. You can do electronic engineering, or you can do a computer engineering. You can be a, a biologist. You can do all these things. You have to complete your post-graduation. And then you have something called analog astronauts. So if you're able to, work on those analog astronaut missions for 1 or 2 years, then you have a rigorous selection process, then a rigorous training process of 1 to 2 years, and then you get to become an astronaut. So this is the whole procedure. But as a career, it is not only becoming an astronaut. As mentioned earlier, I told you there is ground support, tech support, software engineers. Space industry is a combination of mechanical, electronics, software, all kinds of engineers. So it's not that, only aerospace engineers. So in your undergraduation, if you're able to take any of these departments, faculties like electronics or mechanical or computer science, and post graduation, if you want to specialize, you can specialize in rocketry, satellites, you can specialize in propulsion system. So all these things, then you will have an understanding as to what exactly you want to do. So in your post graduation, if you're able to choose any of these subjects, then I think that will be a career for you. And predominantly, in space industry, it's research. If you're thinking you want to make millions or billions, one, you have to be like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, like an entrepreneur, or you have, but space industry, I would say, is more of research, and it gives you a soul satisfaction more than the money that you earn in that. Mine is a very crazy journey, I should say. I got married at the age of 18 when I was an all-rounder. I played about 10 national basketball, and I was a state athlete. I was a silver medalist in shooting. I was a paratrooper and so many things. And straight from there, I popped into, becoming a complete housewife that you call in our Indian jargon. So I was at home for 16 years. After 16 years of sabbatical, there was a calling. And, one angel touched me and said, come on, you got to move on and you got to be an entrepreneur from now. Get going. So from there, I took my first step. I went to NASA. I got the ambassador status for NASA, the first Indian and the only Indian to, be the ambassador for NASA space camps. Then ESA, that is European space camps, and then Russian space camps. I became the ambassador. I was then formed a company called Space Kidz India, and this was a completely scientific educational tourism organization. So I was taking children from here to all the top three research centers, and then continuously traveling there. Then I thought, why not I build satellites and rockets? Why do I have to keep taking children from here? And, of course, in those days, 10 years ago, it was a big boom. And it was a new, actually, history, I should say, history was created. A new opening, a new era was created. But then, after 5 years, say 2015, I was like, I want to start working on satellites. I handpicked a team of students, and that too with students. It was not with any scientist community or anything. So it was students, and grace of God, everything fell in place with a lot of roller coaster rides. We were able to launch our first balloon sat. And today we have launched about 14 balloon sats, 2 suborbital satellites, and 2 orbital satellites. We are the only organization in India, and that too woman-led, to have this rare feat achieved. I've got bundle of experiences, I should say, and let me narrate one of it, because that's the very close one to my heart. My lead scientist, Rifat Shahrukh, he was in 8th grade, and we are so crazy about, initially when we started, so crazy about building satellites, I said, with students. So I had picked this team, and this 8-year, this 14-year, 13, 14, yeah. He was in between 13 and 14-year-old boy was the lead scientist. Can you imagine? And we built this satellite, and next day was the launch, that is Sunday. Permissions, first ever time Indian government was looking at something like this. So they were very skeptical to give permissions, but, continuously, I kind of put pressure, and I was like, this is student research, it's for the future of the country and all that. So then they agreed to give, because you got at least, you got to take permissions from the armed forces, air force, airport authority, so many things. And what? It's all children. And they were all like, don't tell me you're launching this with, a band of monkeys. That's how they would call us, a bandwagon of monkeys. And this is the leader, a woman monkey. Literally, when I stepped out of the room, yeah, in Hindi, these government offices, they have these Hindi officers and all that. ये बंदरिया कहाँ से आ गए, इतने छोटे छोटे बंदर को लेके आके, ये कैसे परमिशन दिए इन लोगों को? That's how they spoke about us. But somehow we were confident enough. But at the previous day, that is Saturday, and early morning Sunday 12 o'clock, when the whole thing, the payload was ready, the satellite, what you call the payload, was ready, we prayed and we were actually going to relax. So that morning 5 o'clock, we had to wake up and go to the ground to launch. And 12 o'clock, my lead scientist says, one last testing can I do, ma'am? He just switches on something, but everything goes for a toss. Oh my God. Can you believe it? It's a Saturday night and 12 o'clock. And what would you do? Most of the components are not available in India. Even if it is available, which store will you go and knock at that hour? Oh my God, but we did. I actually, we just bought some sensors in the morning in a close by store. I picked up these kids, put them in the car and rushed to that place at 2 o'clock in the night. I banged the door and those people thought we were robbers, we were thieves. And they were like with sticks and all that. And I am like, Anna, please don't do all that, Anna. We've come here for some help and all that. And slowly, like 4 people open and they are like, okay, what do you want? Why did you come at this hour and all that? And cutting the long story short, everything worked at 5 o'clock in the morning. Again, we come back to test. Again, it conks. Again, we go back. Finally, by 8:45, everything goes well. And 11 o'clock, we launch. And it was a super successful launch. We retrieved the payload and everything. And then we sent pictures and all to all the governmental authorities. And they were so happy. And they said, finally, you guys made it. We never thought you're going to make it. Oh my God, we were so scared what was going to happen. And they were like, good. So now, so much of respect, those people give us whenever we go for, taking permissions for our launches. They are like, madam, what is new this time? What are your kids going to do? That kind of a love and affection and, a kind of a bond is developed. All new officers keep coming, but when they see our video, they get very excited. They said, jab hum bache the, we didn't have all these things. So, this is a short story that I'd like to always narrate, which is very, very close to my heart. Global warming is the subject now. And, the amount of pollution and the weather cycle change, the pattern changing, all this is because of pollution predominantly, and the chemical waste and e-waste and all these things. So right as from a child, if the parents are able to handhold the child and teach them what is degradable, what is, not degradable, what do we use, what, we shouldn't be using, how to decompose things, how to use those as manures in plants and everything, how to have at least a few potted plants in our homes, how sunlight is very important for us. And, if we could do a carpooling, teach the child that, you don't need to go exclusive all by yourself in a car. Why don't you take your friends together? Probably, you'll have a bond while traveling. All these things, if we are able to teach our child, do not waste water, because everything is becoming precious. And I don't know when all this is going to be extinct also. So, so that's the reason, if we are able to create that right from as a child, if we ingrain all these things, don't wait just for the school to do all this. It's our moral responsibility of every parent to do this. So if we are able to, as parents, teach the child about the greatest gifts that nature has given us and how we have to protect it, then I think the children will understand. and start nurturing everything and feeling proud of all these things, and they will definitely protect them. So I think it's the responsibility of adults. Parents, please encourage your children. Do not demotivate or demoralize your children for any reason. Do not compare your child with another child. Every child is precious. Every child is born for a purpose. Nurture them and give the country the best of your child.